It's time for an inside look at what's cooking on the San Diego Padres hot stove as the team gets ready for the 2025 season.
Swing and a miss. Padres win.
Sam Levitt breaks down the Padres offseason moves and provides an in-depth look at everything you need to know before the Padres take the field for spring training.
Swinging a high fly ball. Deep left center. This one way back and gone.
Plus the latest headlines from around Major League Baseball and analysis of what's happening around the big leagues.
Breaking news out of baseball.
Welcome to Inside San Diego Baseball with the Padres Radio Network's pre- and post-game host, Sam Levitt.
Wednesday night in America's finest city, and that can mean only one thing. A brand new edition of Inside San Diego Baseball, our once-a-week program where we talk all things Padres. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios here on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan, taking you up until 9 p.m. on this Wednesday night. Great to have you with us as we continue to roll towards spring training, roll towards Peoria, Arizona. We are under 1 month away from pitchers and catchers reporting in Peoria, Arizona. That also means less than a month away from my annual journey out to Peoria. I was, in fact, talking to somebody about stopping somewhere in Yuma on my way out there this time. So we're getting very, very close. We've got only a few more shows for you on these Wednesday nights as we get ready for spring training coming up in just a matter of weeks. A lot to cover on the show here tonight. I'll welcome in Frank Marchese on the producing side in just a moment, but we'll talk plenty about Roki Sasaki. That is really the main headline right now in Padres world, really in Major League Baseball, is where will Roki Sasaki sign? We'll talk more about that in this segment coming up in just a minute. The international signing period starting today. So from now until January 23rd, Japanese right-hander Roki Sasaki can sign with any team. We know the reports, 3 finalists, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, but he can sign anywhere and take up as much of that international signing pool bonus money as a team wants to give him. And now we are officially, if we weren't already before, on Roki Sasaki watch. That news could come down any moment. It could come down tonight. It could come down a week from now. We just don't know. And my goodness, after what felt like weeks and weeks of not hearing a whole lot about Roki Sasaki, not really having much to chew on, the last 48, 72 hours, we've got a ton to discuss. We'll get to that in just a moment. We'll also revisit what AJ Cassavell had to say earlier today on Gwynn and Chris. Plenty on Major League headlines as well. Let's welcome in our producer, Frank Marchese. Frank, how are you?
Doing good. Doing pretty good tonight, Sam.
All right. Well, you did a nice job during the Scraby show.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you are ready to go for tonight's edition of Inside San Diego Baseball. You look great. I heard a rumor earlier today. You are down 100 pounds.
Almost.
Wow.
This is the first time in 12 years that I have been under 300. I
Wow.
weighed in this morning at 298, and I started this at 394, so I'm 4 pounds off. Almost there.
Well, good for you. I'm proud of you. You look great.
Thank
I
you.
continue to see the increasing wardrobe, which has been great. You've got a new sweater on today, so you look fantastic. Good for you. Keep up the good work on the weight loss. One thing I'm trying to do right now, you might see this if you're watching on YouTube, is I'm trying to increase my water intake.
I thought that was Scraby.
No, this is mine. So I'm now carrying around what is, I'm not kidding, I believe it's a 116-ounce water bottle. It's huge. When it's all filled up, it's heavy, and I'm lugging it around with me everywhere I go. Last 3 days I've done well, and it has times on it from 7 a.m., and then every 2 hours a different mark, 7, 9, 11, 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m., 7 p.m., 9 p.m., and the goal is to drink the water as you go and hit those different marks, and I have. So I'm hydrated. I'm ready for this Wednesday night. Voice feels good, but I do have to go to the bathroom a lot. I've got to.
There's one side effect of that.
That's the one part of this that you don't think about. I'm constantly running to the bathroom now, which is good. I mean, that's a good thing when you're drinking a lot of water. So I may have to hand things to you at some point if I have an emergency as I go through my water bottle, but I'm well hydrated.
Before I had my surgery, I used to have, like, you know how Crystal Geyser has those big gallons of water? I used to go through one of those a day before I had my surgery. Now I can barely get through like 2 things of smart water.
So that's interesting.
Smart water isn't working, by the way.
I promise we'll get to Sasaki here in just a moment, but that's interesting and something I don't think we've talked about. With your surgery, it also is water that you can't consume too much.
I have 20% of my stomach left.
Okay, I didn't think of that. I didn't think about the water. Wow. Okay.
I didn't think about it either until I couldn't drink it. I'm like, you guys were supposed to take the food part of my stomach out, not the water part.
Yeah.
I still want to drink this.
All right. Well, you look great. You're doing well, and very, very good to see. Let's talk a little Roki Sasaki here in this opening segment. It is the story, really the main story across Major League Baseball right now. Certainly the main story we're following with the San Diego Padres, and quite frankly, it's been that way for weeks now, for months now. And in the next week, at some point, we can guarantee we will have an answer whether Roki Sasaki will be a San Diego Padre for the foreseeable future, or whether he will be in another uniform. And that uniform could very well be in the blue of the LA Dodgers. Now, what was interesting in the last 48 to 72 hours, beyond understanding that the stakes are incredibly high when it comes to this decision for Sasaki and for the Padres in particular, one of the more interesting things that happened, and you probably have seen it by now, it's been discussed on the station a ton over the course of the last couple of days, but the video circulating online of Roki Sasaki throwing on flat ground in the outfield at Petco Park, seemingly surrounded by some Padres players and front office members, looked like top prospect Ethan Salas was catching Sasaki. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw the original video that was from the back of Sasaki, I really did not believe it was him because he was wearing all Padres gear. For a moment, I thought it was Robert Suarez with the hiked up socks and a tall, lanky right-hander. But then you look at the delivery, and it became pretty clear that it was Roki Sasaki. Now, of course, nobody's confirmed this. Padres haven't said, yeah, Roki Sasaki was throwing him. And look, I don't know what to make of the videos and the fact that Roki Sasaki was in Padres gear, head to toe, throwing at Petco Park.
What are you going to do? You going to dress him up in Mariners gear?
Well,
like, come on.
My question is this, because I do find it really interesting, and maybe I find it more interesting than other people do. We know that he did the same reportedly in Toronto, throwing on their field. We have not publicly seen a video of it. We have not publicly seen a video of him doing the same thing, let's say in Dodger gear in LA. But I do find it really interesting, if he does end up with the San Diego Padres, that just 48 to 72 hours ago, he was in Padres gear, throwing at Petco Park, in front of potential teammates, in front of the front office. If he signs with the Padres, you will never tell me that that was nothing. Because if this was a typical free agency search, which it's not, Sasaki is a totally different situation. It's signing with a totally different pool of money. We're not talking about a decision that is based on at least the salary he's going to get for a team, from a team. It's a very different kind of pursuit and recruitment than normal free agency, but we would never, if Sasaki was 7-8 years down the line here, we would never see a potential free agent throwing on a team's field in their gear unless he was actually signed to that team or they had agreed to a deal. You just wouldn't see it. So again, do we know for sure if Roki Sasaki just a handful of days earlier wasn't also in Toronto doing the same thing in Blue Jays gear and we just didn't see it? Sure, he may have, but he also may have not. We don't know the answer to that. He may have thrown in Dodger blue. He may have not. I just find it interesting. I can't put nothing to it. I just can't when you see that. So at the time when you saw that, knowing that he is close enough to signing with the Padres, that he is literally at Petco Park in brown and gold doing some throwing as he's about to make the biggest decision of his baseball life to this point, you can't tell me that's nothing. Do we know if it actually means anything? No. But in my mind, you can't tell me it's nothing. We're going to find out how significant that is in the coming days. Bottom line right now is this, and especially when it comes to the San Diego Padres, the stakes are incredibly high. And look, I've been somebody, if you've listened to the show the last month or so, really ever since the winter meetings when we started getting dialed in on the Sasaki pursuit, on the Sasaki situation. Look, I never made I don't want to say I didn't make a big deal out of this whole pursuit, but to me it was, hey, we don't know. We don't know where he's going to end up. We don't know if, there's a team out there that, has always had a leg up, that I think as it was discussed earlier today on the station, if this was a matter, let's say, of Roki Sasaki maybe having his heart set on somewhere, and now it's a process of, hey, we're going to meet with teams and let's see if we can sway him off whatever that team is. We don't know any of that, but at this current moment, it just feels like the stakes for everybody are incredibly high because this has become not just about having a future ace at a very, very low price and what it means for your franchise to get, if he is going to be what evaluators think he can be, not only get a guy who could be a Cy Young caliber ace, that in and of itself makes the stakes incredibly, incredibly high. But when you consider the impact that his decision and the teams that are still involved, the impact that this whole process is having on whether it's the Padres, Dodgers, Blue Jays, on their entire international signing class, that's another reason why the stakes are so high. There is real possibility, if it hasn't happened already, that international players who had agreed to sign with the Padres, sign with the Dodgers, sign with the Blue Jays, that earlier today they went elsewhere because the teams can't commit to those players without knowing where Sasaki is going. So that makes it another piece that makes, again, the stakes incredibly high. If the Padres don't get him, even more so than it already is, the question becomes, okay, what do the Padres do? What's the plan now for a team that everybody is hoping can be really competitive in 2025? It feels like there have been so many eggs put in the Sasaki basket that if the Padres don't get him, make no mistake, and I'm not breaking any news to anybody out there, it's going to be a gut punch. It's going to hurt. And if he ends up with the Dodgers, it's going to sting even more. I think I would speak for all Padres fans that you hope if it's not the Padres that he's going to Toronto, because the Dodgers getting stronger is something that I'm sure no Padres fan wants to see, right? The rich getting richer with the Dodgers and the team they have in LA, and getting a guy in Sasaki for years and years to come. So that is why, all those reasons combined, that is why the stakes are so incredibly high. Yes, it's about a future ace. Yes, it's about getting a guy of that caliber, but it's also about the impact on your own international signing class, what you've already potentially sacrificed to just get the opportunity to sign Roki Sasaki. And quite frankly, the idea that if it's not the Padres, then there's a 50-50 chance based on the teams that he's going to the Dodgers, which will hurt. The whole thing will hurt. That'll make it sting even more. And we know this about the international signing class. This was put in The Athletic within the last couple of days. The Padres informed some players who were expected to be part of their upcoming signing class that they were free to seek other deals. League sources said the Dodgers have told players to consider signing as part of next year's class if the team lands Sasaki and can't acquire enough international bonus pool money via trade to honor their handshake agreements, league sources said. So this has already been put in motion. I mean, we saw this on display earlier today. I know there were a number of Dodgers potential signees that have already gone elsewhere earlier today. This is real. I mean, it doesn't appear, at least based on what we know, doesn't appear like teams are operating as if they know they have them or they know they don't have them, right? Because you would assume with the international signing class that if a team, whether it be the Padres, Dodgers, or Blue Jays, knew that they weren't going to get them, that maybe they would go allocate that pool money elsewhere. But those teams are not operating like that. We don't know when this decision is going to come down. We don't know if a decision has been made, and we just don't know about it yet. It's a bit of a fascinating situation. We know the Padres met with them in San Diego over the last handful of days. We know the Dodgers were the latest of the 3 finalists to meet with them on Tuesday. That was, I believe, in L.A. We know there are 3 finalists, but that's about all we know. I mean, this has been really a pretty fascinating process when you consider the quality of pitcher Roki Sasaki is, his age, the unique situation this is. You know, I don't really recall the Shohei Ohtani pursuit. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember it, at least to me, being like this, where you felt like there were multiple teams all at once, decision coming down to the wire, a real unknown to what was going to happen, and also having the stakes feel as high as they are. And do those stakes feel higher to the Padres than, say, the Dodgers? They do, because there's no way around it. The Padres really need him. And the idea that he would be in the brown and gold would mean a great deal to this team in their current situation for what they currently need. There's just no way around it. It means more to the Padres than it means to the Dodgers right now. The Dodgers, let's be honest, they don't get Roki Sasaki. He goes to San Diego. He goes to Toronto. LA Dodgers are going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. But it is a potentially, and I don't want to say this about one player because I don't think baseball works like that, and I think we would all agree that one player does not make or break a baseball team, but it is a franchise-altering decision in a way when you can get the kind of pitcher Roki Sasaki is at his age, at the price it is right now. It is a really, really big deal, and that is why the stakes feel so incredibly high. And now we wait. We wait from now until the 23rd, whenever that decision comes down, and it will either be a great moment in the history of the San Diego Padres, or it's going to be a real gut punch. And I don't know which of those it's going to be. I would encourage you, if it is a gut punch, to try to take it in stride, to try to turn the page. I'm sure it will hurt. I certainly hope it's a celebratory moment instead of a moment that you want to forget. And we'll see. It's a fascinating situation, Frank.
No, it certainly is. And from everything I've heard about Sasaki, he wants to kind of be on his own. He wants to be let to do his own thing. He doesn't want to necessarily be the center of attention, which again leads you to believe that he is going to be here. However, you know, getting videos and pictures of you plastered all over at what you thought was a private workout, if that were me, I wouldn't be too thrilled about that.
Look, I'm not going to make believe that, you know, that I know, you know, any of the details of the workout. Here's what I will say. If it was meant to be super, super private, that's not necessarily the space to do it with the high rises around it.
No, I agree.
So I don't know that they were that concerned about it, which is fine. Again, if Roki Sasaki ends up a Padre, it's going to be a really cool thing to look back on.
Of course.
If he doesn't, it's going to be like, wow, he was at Petco Park in Padres gear and couldn't find a way to close the deal. So it's, I you know, look, again, like I said, in a normal free agent pursuit, you'd never see something like that. So this is just, again, it speaks to how unique this has been, and how important it is to the Padres. So we're going to find out. It's going to be really, really interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about Sasaki. There's not a ton to break down beyond what we just said, to be honest with you. I will say this. I continue to believe when you look at all the different factors that have been discussed of things that have been said to be important to Roki Sasaki, the Padres continue to check a lot of the boxes. Whether you want to talk having Yu Darvish, a great influence there for Sasaki, a smaller market, which some people seem to think he will enjoy more, good pitching development, having Ruben Niebla there, having the track record of working with guys like Lugo and Waka and King and all the guys as of late the Padres have worked with and really developed. Look, there's a lot to point to where the Padres check a lot of the boxes. They really do. Does that mean Sasaki is in the brown and gold by the end of next week? It doesn't. We don't know. But they've got a real shot. I don't think there's any way around that right now. This is a player that we know AJ Preller and the Padres have had their eye on for a really long time. Look, we can talk about this most recent process. We can talk about the meetings. We can talk about the videos coming out of again, and I want to be clear about the videos. Nobody has come out and said that's 100% Roki Sasaki. It sure looked, especially in one of them, like it was Roki Sasaki. Okay, so I just want to put that disclaimer out there that I'm not like going on record saying it was Roki Sasaki, but it sure looked like him. The bottom line is this is not some new pursuit that started in the last month. This has been a player we've heard about for a really, really, really long time. And now the Padres, I would assume, are trying to push this across the finish line after what has been a really long pursuit of this star player from Japan. Let's step aside. When we return, we'll discuss a number of different things. I do want to touch on Donovan Solano signing with the Seattle Mariners and maybe tell you why. Don't fret if you're a Padre fan. I know Donovan was a big part of last year's team, but don't fret. I think there's an argument to be made that you don't necessarily want to bring a guy like Solano back at that number. I'm going to get into it because there's a number of different ways to look at it. We'll also again revisit what AJ Cassavell, Padres beat reporter for MLB.com, said earlier today on Gwynn and Chris. A lot of good stuff with AJ earlier today. We'll take a look at some different headlines from across Major League Baseball. The Mets, Pete Alonso. We have Ha-Sung Kim, update on him. We'll take a deeper look at, again, what the Padres may do or not do, whether they get the Sasaki or not. At the end of the day, a lot of holes to fill, a lot of things that have been on our checklist for months now that we still don't really have answers to, which goes well beyond Roki Sasaki. So we will get to all that. You're listening to Inside San Diego Baseball on a Wednesday night here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. A very appropriate song right now. Padres trying to sign, seal, and deliver Roki Sasaki to San Diego. We'll see if they can do it. Sasaki Watch is officially on. International signing period beginning earlier today, and now the news could break at any moment. Could break in 5 minutes while we're on the air. That would be kind of cool if we had breaking Roki Sasaki news while we're on the air, our 2 hours per week here on Wednesday nights. Or may happen overnight or at some point over the course of the next week or so. You're listening to Inside San Diego Baseball on this Wednesday night. Sam Levitt with you, taking you up until 9 p.m. here on 97.3 The Fan as we talk all things Padres baseball and beyond. Number of different ways to interact with the program. You can, of course, call in 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, the phone number to call. Happy to chat about Roki Sasaki. The question I want you to call in and answer here tonight, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level right now? What is your confidence level after having a number of teams reportedly eliminated from the Sasaki sweepstakes? What is your confidence level knowing that the Padres are reportedly one of 3 teams remaining, them, the Dodgers, and the Blue Jays? What is your confidence level that Roki Sasaki will be in the brown and gold? That's the question we're answering tonight on the phones at 833-288-0973. You can also, of course, watch our program on YouTube on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel. Frank looking great with his weight loss. And, look, I've dropped a couple of pounds as well. I'm drinking my water, doing my intermittent fasting. So, I look pretty good, I think, right now. So anyway, YouTube, we're on there as well. You can comment on the YouTube channel whenever you'd like, and we may address some of those YouTube comments coming up a little bit later on. In our segment to wrap up the hour, I'll dip back into that conversation I was alluding to about Donovan Solano, the news coming out earlier this week that Solano is heading to the Seattle Mariners. We'll dive into that a little bit and give you a little perspective on that move for the Mariners and the fact that, hey, a big role player for the Padres in 2024 isn't coming back in 2025. I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen Solano come back. Not going to be the case. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next segment. I did want to quickly bring up, just because it is something that, always, interests people. It's something that we don't focus on a ton right now, but you know what? When those Sundays come, it's something you do want to know from a couple of different standpoints. Sunday Night Baseball schedule came out on ESPN, or I should say the schedule on ESPN for the months to come, at least the first half of the year, came out earlier today. Padres between March 30th, first week of the season, and July 6th will be on Sunday Night Baseball 3 times. March 30th at Petco Park against the Braves. April 20th in Houston against the Astros. An interesting one, July 6th against the Texas Rangers at Petco Park. So why do I bring it up? It's notable for a couple of reasons. Number one, different game times. So, for example, March 30th against the Braves, typically that's going to be a 1:10 start, but Sunday Night Baseball, I assume, I haven't looked yet, but I assume that's probably a 4 o'clock start, something like that in the 4 p.m. hour for March 30th against Atlanta. So, hey, that's a bit of a change on a Sunday, means I get out later on the post-game show as well, which is no big deal. Hey, got to do what you got to do. But it also is always significant, and Frank knows this, because it means that our broadcast here on 97.3 The Fan is the only local broadcast. And I know for sure, whether it's an ESPN Sunday night game or an Apple TV Friday night game, there's no doubt about it, we get people that don't normally listen to the radio broadcast on those nights because to their right, they miss Don and Mud, which I totally understand. They want the local flavor. They want Jesse and Tony, they want me. They want to hear the local broadcast. They want to hear people that are really, really, really familiar with the team, people they know. They want the excitement of the local San Diego call. So I always note that, kind of early on. Hey, those are the days when, we're the place to go for sure when you don't, unfortunately, have Don and Mud.
And just so you are right, it is going to be a 4:10 start. At least it's scheduled for 4:10 on that March 30th against Atlanta.
All right. Very, very good. So Sunday night baseball schedule is out. Padres have 3 games on the Sunday night schedule moving forward into early July. Little piece of news here. Again, how significant this is going to be for the Padres or not, in my mind, is TBD. Look, I've thought for a long time there was very little chance of Ha-Seong Kim returning based on the kind of contract I thought he would get and where he sort of fits in with where the Padres are right now. I mean, look, on the infield, there are a lot of questions about the Padres, their full roster right now, but on the middle infield, there's really not much of a question. I would assume Xander Bogaerts is going to be at shortstop. I would assume Jay Cronenworth, at least with the way the roster is right now, most days would play second base. And Luis Ariz is going to play first base on a lot of days. To me, the need on the infield is somebody who can, and we'll get to Solano in our next segment, somebody who can sort of fill that Solano role more of on a full-time basis from a year ago. Somebody who can DH, who can play some first base. Yes, I'm sure Jay Cronenworth will play first base on some days, but they need a DH first base type, at least to me. So, look, I still wouldn't predict that Ha-Seong Kim is coming back here. And look, I would assume he's going to get, I don't know how big the contract is, but a multi-year contract of some level. The interesting part about Kim, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this impacts his free agency, is that according to John Morosi of MLB Network, and this was put out, I believe, earlier today. It was earlier today. John Morosi saying that Kim's first regular season appearance might be somewhere in the month of May and not April. Now, is that a huge deal if he misses a month plus? It's really not a huge deal, especially if you're signing him to a multi-year deal, right? But it is notable. I mean, look, we don't know what the situation is going to be with Ha-Seong Kim. We don't know that he's signing a multi-year deal. This is a still, even with the flurry of activity we saw early on and around the winter meetings, this is still a really interesting free agent market. I mean, you think about Pete Alonso. It appears he's struggling to find a home. He's struggling to find a long-term deal. You talk about somebody like a Ha-Seong Kim. Is he struggling to find a home, to find a long-term deal? What's going on with somebody like Jurickson Profar? Names go on and on and on as far as guys that you just don't know what kind of deal they're going to get. Is it going to be multi-year? Is it going to be for an amount of money they want? Or are we going to see some of these guys, and we see this seemingly every offseason now, is somebody like a Ha-Seong Kim going to have to settle for more of a pillow contract? Is somebody like, and this is not Padre related, but is somebody like Pete Alonso? Not that Pete's getting a one-year deal, but is he going to have to settle for something more of a pillow deal? Maybe a deal that has opt-outs in it, maybe as early as next year so he can hit the market again, a la a Blake Snell, albeit a totally different position, totally different situation. I think these are fair questions. So is it totally out of the realm of possibility if the Padres can financially do it that they could bring back Ha-Seong Kim? It's not out of the realm of possibility. Seems unlikely based on the fact that I would still assume he's going to get some sort of multi-year deal, even if he's not available for the month of April. And also for the Padres, as far as their fit and their needs right now, I really don't see it, because to me, infield-wise, it's pretty clear what they need. They need somebody who can DH, who can play some first base. Maybe he can play elsewhere. Remember, Solano was playing third. I mean, Donovan was pretty versatile as far as what he could play defensively. But they need somebody who, to me, could play some corners, spell Manny, a day or two out of a month. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. And look, I don't think we're going to hear much about the Padres and anybody until this Ha-Seong Kim, until this Roki Sasaki situation is played out. And it just feels like that right now. Again, we talk about the stakes being incredibly high. One of those reasons, one of the smaller reasons to me, is that it may very well impact what else the Padres do this offseason, how they operate, what they have to do. I mean, again, it's just a unique situation where we're sitting here less than a month out from pitchers and catchers reporting, not only in an offseason where the Padres have been really quiet, but also where the decision of one player can have this kind of impact. And then if you don't get them, you have to ask yourselves, if you're an organization, if you're the Padres, okay, what do we do now? And I'm sure that question, and A.J. Cassavell talked a little bit about this earlier today on Gwynn and Chris. We'll get to that in the 8 p.m. hour. But that question is something that I'm sure will not surprise the Padres. Again, I don't know. Do they know they're getting him? We don't know. But if they don't, or if they don't have that answer yet, I'm sure they have thought that through. I'm sure A.J. Preller's not sitting there thinking, well, if we don't get him, we're going to have to, for the first time in months, assess what we're going to do now. Again, does Sasaki's decision have any bearing on what else they do, how they operate? I don't know. Maybe the plan is the same whether he signs or whether he doesn't. I don't know the answer to that, but it's part of what makes this so fascinating. We'll see where Kim goes. We'll see where Sasaki goes. We'll see where Alonso goes and Profar. These are all very good questions here on January 15th as we continue to roll towards spring training. All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Donovan Solano, dive into what he received from the Mariners, and I'll tell you why, even though it hurts to lose a guy like Donnie Barrel, somebody who was incredibly good in the role he was given last year. I'll tell you why it may end up being okay. We'll get to that when we come back inside San Diego Baseball on 97.3 The Fan.
Carla only has the best tech.
Can't connect to network.
But she didn't have the best internet. So she got Cox multi-gig speeds to power all her... Now, all her tech is...
connected.
Exactly. Step it up with multi-gig speeds. Available everywhere. Only from Cox. 2 gig download speeds. Individual speeds vary. See Cox.com for details.
Chronic joint pain has a snowball effect. It's not just the pain.
What that did is just make me depressed that I couldn't get back into the gym, and I was inactive, gaining weight. I had to find another alternative.
And for Chad, that alternative was QC Kinetics and the non-surgical natural biologic treatments that can give lasting relief to aching hips, shoulders, knees, and backs.
Once they explained it, it made sense. Putting what we have inside our body back into us in a certain strategic way to heal up in a natural process was fantastic.
QC Kinetics treatments take place right in the office. No downtime, no surgery. And as for the outcome,
I'm just back to bouncing around, having fun, doing my work, living pain-free.
Don't let chronic joint pain rob you of your quality of life. Discover advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. Call now to learn more. It's a free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 619-614-PAIN. That's 619-614-PAIN. 619-614-PAIN.
Need inspiration? Shop Ralph's for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals with savings beyond low prices. Like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Ralph's. Fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Mix and match participating items and get 4 for $5 with your card. Choose from Kroger brand pasta, Starkist tuna pouches, buy drinks, and more. Ralph's, fresh for everyone.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
741 here on 97.3 The Fan on this Wednesday night. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Inside San Diego Baseball, our once-a-week program, 7 to 9 p.m. here on Wednesday nights on 97.3 The Fan as we continue to inch closer and closer to spring training in Peoria, Arizona. I got a nice message here on Instagram from a listener named Mike. Let me pull up the message here. Mike Fox, who runs a restaurant in Yuma, who wants me to stop on my way through to spring training, a lifelong Padre fan. So, Mike, DM me again if you're still listening, and I would love to maybe stop by the restaurant on my way to Yuma. Yes, Frank?
Watch you go in on his day off.
Well,
just watch that happen. It'll be his day off.
Maybe.
You show up looking for Mike, and he ain't there.
Well, I'll tell you, the last couple of years, my routine on the way to spring training has been I stop at Cafe Adesso, the Musgrove Coffee Shop. In fact, we had Cafe Adesso here for the Ben & Woods Christmas and holiday extravaganza. Diane Musgrove and one of her baristas, they came and provided excellent coffee for the Christmas and holiday extravaganza. So that was really cool. So last couple of years, I've stopped at Cafe Adesso, got my coffee, continued on through Alpine, through the mountains, went down towards Yuma, and then typically around Yuma, stop for lunch. And that's my one big stop before I continue on to Phoenix. So we'll see if I do something like that again. It's always a cool journey out there. That's like the real official start of baseball season for me. The moment I head out to spring training, and February 12th, pitchers and catchers report. So we're getting very, very close to that. Really exciting, and a lot to happen between now and then, including this decision for Roki Sasaki. We'll get back into Sasaki at the top of the hour. I want to take a little bit of a break from Roki Watch, if you will, and talk about some news that came down yesterday, and this was Donovan Solano, the Mariners, adding, now former Padre, Donovan Solano, signing a $3.5 million deal with the Mariners, a chance to earn an additional $1 million in performance bonuses. So, nice job by Donovan Solano. When you really think about his last calendar year, the fact that he signed as a minor league free agent with the Padres in 2024, ends up getting an opportunity to join the major league club, excels, becomes a key part of the team, of the clubhouse, becomes an enormous part of a 93-win team, and now for Donovan Solano at the age of 37, turns it into $3.5 million guaranteed. I mean, that's a heck of a job by Donovan Solano, who, by the way, could not have been better to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people inside that clubhouse. A joy to deal with, a joy to work with. I wish the best to Donovan Solano. Hope he has a really nice year in Seattle. So good for him. Good for Donovan Solano, who turned turned a non-major league contract into $3.5 million the next offseason based on what he did in San Diego. That's a really, really good job. Look, Donovan Solano, if we want to read just the numbers, was terrific, right? In limited time. 96 games, hit 286, 8 home runs, 35 RBIs. We know even the numbers don't really tell the story of what he was. The quality of hits, the key moments, the pinch hits, the walk-off hit, the fact that he could play some third, the fact that he could play first base, the fact that he could DH, the fact that he could do so many different things off the bench. It was part of what made the Padres last year. I mean, the fact that they had a real bench. This was not the bench of 2023. This was not Nelson Cruz. This was not Matt Carpenter. It worked out exceptionally, exceptionally well. So if you're a Padre fan, you might be sitting there thinking, how could we let a guy like Donovan Solano go for $3.5 million? Somebody who was incredibly important to our team and somebody who could play that very similar role in 2025. We just talked about it before the break. One of the needs for the Padres right now, in my eyes, is that DH type that can also play some corner infield, can play first base. You can mix him with Arise. Arise can DH. That guy can DH. Maybe he can even play some second base. I don't know. It depends who you're going to bring in. How do you let that guy go for only 3.5? Well, number one, we know with the likely financial situation the Padres are in, 3.5, isn't nothing if you're really trying to squeeze out value out of each and every dollar right now. And good for Donovan Solano. He's able to go get that deal in Seattle. The reason, and I teased this before the break, the reason I'm not, and I'd encourage you not to panic about Donovan Solano leaving, couple of reasons. Number one, for as good as Donovan was in his age 36 season, he'll be 37 next year. It was a nice run for Donovan Solano in what, for the most part, was a limited role. Now, he had stretches where he was playing every day, with injuries, things like that. There were some different stretches where he was more of a bench guy, where he wasn't getting in the lineup as much. There were stretches where he was playing nearly every day. The point is this. I don't think you can ever totally bet with 100% confidence that you're going to get that kind of similar performance on a day-to-day basis, which is, by the way, if you were asking him to fill that first base DH role, you're pretty much asking him to play in some capacity almost every day. Are you going to get that kind of performance from Donovan Solano for a second straight year? I can't guarantee that. You might, but I can't guarantee that at 37 years old. To me, and it goes back to many of the original conversations we've had about the job that A.J. Preller needs to do this offseason, to me, it is not so much about getting exactly Donovan Solano back, exactly David Peralta back. When you talk about the bench, when you talk about the pieces that can really impact winning each and every night, these players that aren't going to cost a ton, probably more veteran type pieces, the Solano and Peralta type roles. It doesn't need to necessarily be Solano and Peralta. To me, what AJ and the Padres are likely going to have to do is find the Solano and Peralta of 2025, but not Solano and Peralta exactly, not those two guys. Now, could David Peralta end back up with the Padres? Sure. We're going to see. But he's going to have to hit on some of those moves again. Is it going to shock anyone if they have the Solano Peralta type move in the early part of the season? Somebody that then is at El Paso, gets an opportunity because of an injury. Maybe you're going to, in all likelihood, need those guys. And by the way, I see somebody mentioned it in the chat, Eggy Rosario, his turn to step up. Yeah, maybe that ends up being your version of a Donovan Solano of 2025. Look, you're going to need to find that kind of value and somewhat level of production, whether it was Solano and Peralta or not those guys. I mean, this has been the whole, I think, part of the offseason that for a while we've understood that AJ's going to have to do a really similar job. Okay, he's going to have to hit. He hit on Solano. He hit on Peralta. There was never going to be a guarantee that it was going to be Solano again. It was going to be Peralta again. But you need to find the similar type pieces that can be that productive. Okay? If it's Jurickson Profar or not Jurickson Profar playing left field, AJ's got a task ahead of him of finding value, of finding production, and it's not going to, in all likelihood, be a guy that you're paying a ton. I mean, that's the really hard part of AJ's job right now, is that he did such a great job last year in hitting. He hit on Profar. He hit on Solano. He hit on Peralta. He hit on Michael King. He hit on Jason Adam. He hit on Tanner Scott. He hit on promoting Jackson Merrill. Well, guess what? It's going to have to do it again. But it's not going to be a carbon copy, is the point. Now, you look at free agents that sort of fit that Solano mold. Look, it's guys that are sort of similar, okay? I'm looking at the list right now of first basemen, okay? Free agents, guys that could play some first base and DH, okay? Justin Turner is going to be 40 years old. And I'm just listing names. You don't have to want them, but I'm just giving you names of some of the similar type guys they may have to look at. Okay, Justin Turner, between two teams last year, 259 average, 11 home runs, 55 RBIs. Not going to knock your socks off, but a professional player. The Connor Joes of the world. Anthony Rizzo is on this list. Former Padre Ty France is on this list. Again, are these names going to knock your socks off? No. But until you give me a bigger name or a name that makes more sense, that may be, if it's not going to be a Solano, the type of pool they're dipping into. And again, we're going to find out the answers to this based on the Sasaki decision, based on how active the Padres get in the trade market. There are all those questions around Cease and Arise and Suarez, and we can get more into it in our next hour. But the point is, and again, what I'm really trying to get to is that they're going to have to find value in production in the same way they did last year. In all likelihood, it was never going to be the exact same pieces, and I wouldn't get caught up in the pieces. I'd get caught up in the level of production, because to me, that is what A.J. Preller is really going for.
I mean, and I'm not even looking at first baseman. I mean, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm looking at guys all throughout the infield that could possibly play different positions. Brandon Drury is still a free agent. A reunion of Brandon Drury might be welcomed. I'm seeing Brendan Rodgers is still available as a free agent. Paul DeYoung, as you mentioned last week, Jose Iglesias is still a free agent. J.D. Davis, as we know, has first base experience. He's still a free agent. Yohan Moncada, Brian Anderson, Nick Madrigal. There are still names out there that aren't necessarily first basemen that can fill that role and play anywhere in the infield, kind of the way that Ha-Seong Kim would have.
Yeah, look, and hey, I'm certainly not against Ha-Seong Kim. I mean, look, I said it earlier, the first baseman DH type. One thought that comes into my mind, if somehow, some way you could get Kim here on a pillow deal, is, well, Ha-Seong plays second, and then you've got Cronenworth and Arise playing first base. And Arise can play some first. He probably DHs most days. You can spell different guys. You can reorganize your infield. It'll be the same exact infield and DH spot that you had a year before without a Donovan Solano. Look, it's possible. I mean, I can't see Kim settling for a number that would make sense for the Padres to bring him back on a real pillow, like 1 year type deal. It's very hard for me to see. But with that said, you know, if the injury is going to play a part in what his value is and the kind of contract he can get, anything is possible. Look, I would certainly take Ha-Seong Kim back. Okay, so can be a very, very productive player, as we know. I just don't know the likelihood that that's going to happen. But again, these are the decisions that A.J. Preller is going to have to make, in my mind, whether he gets Roki Sasaki or not. Look, there has been so much made of Sasaki, and rightfully so. Does Sasaki impact how you view your rotation? Does it impact the decision to trade Dylan Cease or not? It may, but from a left field standpoint, from a DH first base standpoint, from a catching standpoint, I mean, the only way that Sasaki has really anything to do with how you strategize for that is the trades, right? Because then you might start, you know, if you trade anybody, then it's about who you getting back. What money are you freeing up? How are you going to spend that money? But does Sasaki getting him have direct impact on how you approach the rest of your roster? Not really. But again, it could certainly impact who you trade, how aggressive you get in the trade market, and in turn, what money you have to free up and how you allocate that money. So we're still in this waiting pattern. I mean, it's been a really weird offseason. Trust me, when we decided to have a once-a-week program, I think we thought we'd have some more moves to talk about. Padres have typically been much more active, but here we are. And one way or another, we're going to get some major news at some point in the next week. We're going to find out. Hour number 2 of our Inside San Diego Baseball program coming up next on 97.3 The Fan.
It's time for an inside look at what's cooking on the San Diego Padres hot stove as the team gets ready for the 2025 season.
Swing and a miss. Padres win.
Sam Levitt breaks down the Padres offseason moves and provides an in-depth look at everything you need to know before the Padres take the field for spring training.
Swinging a high fly ball. Deep left center. This one way back and gone.
Plus the latest headlines from around Major League Baseball and analysis of what's happening around the big leagues.
Breaking news out of baseball.
Welcome to Inside San Diego Baseball with the Padres Radio Network's pre- and post-game host, Sam Levitt.
Hour number 2 of our Wednesday night radio program. Sam Levitt with you inside San Diego Baseball as we continue on up until 9 p.m. here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Frank Marchese on the quote-unquote other side of the glass doing the producing here tonight, chiming in from time to time as we continue to wait for the decision of one Roki Sasaki. And when that decision will be made, we simply do not know. But I'm sure whenever that decision is made, if it's 1 a.m. here in San Diego, I'm sure Adam Klug will have somebody here to talk about it live on the air. We continue to wait to see where the Japanese right-hander will go. We know the Padres are reportedly one of 3 teams remaining in the Sasaki sweepstakes. Somebody told me earlier I said sweepstakes. Sweepstake. It's hard to say. Sasaki sweepstakes. Gotta sound it out. Say it slowly. Say it slowly. That's another hard thing to say. All right. Anyway, a lot going on here. We'll get to AJ Casvell, what he had to say on Quinn and Chris earlier today. I thought some very, very good insight, very good perspective from AJ, Padres beat reporter for MLB.com. We'll dive into some Major League headlines as well. And as always, we invite you to watch on YouTube. If you would prefer to watch our show, you can do that at the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel. As always, we are available on the Odyssey app and anywhere you can listen to 97.3 The Fan, including on the FM radio in your cars. I will give you a programming note. We will not have a show next week. No Inside San Diego Baseball next week. I'm going to be out of town. And so we're not doing it. We have the power. I will also say discussions are ongoing. I can't confirm nor deny anything yet. Discussions are ongoing about our plans for spring training with this show. If we will continue doing the program when I'm in Peoria, I'll tell you, I think we're leaning towards it. That'll make Frank Marchese, I think, very happy to get some more hours on the timesheet. So, not finalized yet. Adam and I had our initial conversation about it, so we'll let you know what we're going to do as far as the show from Peoria. I will tell you we're not doing the show during the season. Obviously, we'll have games and pre- and post-game and all that, but we're working on all of that, and we'll have updates for you on what you can expect here on Wednesday nights as we get into spring training. A little peek behind the curtain as well before we get back to baseball. I am dealing right now with, it's a problem, really. In my world, it's a problem. And that is, TikTok might be over for your guy here. Frank Marchese has been a longtime follower. He's been a contributor in the comment section at times. He's been a live contributor sometimes. And I may have posted my last TikTok. So we're going to find out in the next few days here if the TikTok era is indeed coming to an end for everybody here in the country. Hard to believe. I don't want it to happen.
You mean I don't have to hear your voice every December and January to close out the year?
Well, you'll hear it on Instagram and everywhere else. Trust me, I'm not going to stop.
Oh, boy.
I'm not going to stop. The train won't stop. Train keeps on moving, whether TikTok is there or not. So
put some brakes on that train.
Well, anyway, it's we're gonna have to see. And by the way, I also want to say, while we're veering off into different topics here, we talked about it a lot last week. Our thoughts, our prayers continue to be with everybody up in LA who continues to deal with the wildfires. Just unbelievable devastation up there as the weeks continued, and Thoughts, prayers, our hearts are with you up in LA. Everybody that's been affected by the fires. I said it during the show last week. My brother, his girlfriend, they were on the way down to San Diego. They ended up staying with me for a few days when the fire started in Runyon Canyon. Thankfully, they were able to put it out pretty quickly. But my brother from his apartment in West Hollywood, my brother and his girlfriend, they literally watched the fire within 15, 20 minutes grow. Super scary. Got out of there. They ended up being in an evacuation zone and ended up staying with me for a few days just to be safe. And now they're back in LA and doing well. So our thoughts continue to be with you. I know I've shared a number of things on my Instagram as far as different ways you can contribute, including here in the San Diego area. There are a number of different organizations. I know we've highlighted some of them here on the station the last week or so that are really putting together tremendous efforts to help people up in LA, number of different ways that you can contribute. So highly encourage people to get involved. Do what you can. Obviously, the wildfires, it's an issue, and I didn't grow up here. I've never experienced it, to be honest, but I know it's something that can very, very much affect us down here as well. So let's continue to support everybody affected by those wildfires up in LA. I don't remember if I said this on the show or not. I don't know if I knew yet or not. Family I know really well in Altadena lost everything, lost their house. A really good friend of my brother's, their whole family lost their house. So really, really sad and, just devastation up there. So we're thinking of everybody up in LA and our continued prayers, and we'll continue to provide any support we can here in San Diego. All right, back to baseball here. AJ Cassavell, Padres beat reporter for MLB.com, joined Gwynn and Chris earlier today, and I thought AJ touched on a number of really, really good topics, both Roki Sasaki and beyond. So I wanted to revisit some of the things that AJ had to say. We'll get to this over the course of the next couple of segments here. Let's start with Padres beat reporter for MLB.com, AJ Cassavell, his feelings on how big this decision is with Roki Sasaki in a macro sense.
Yeah, I think it's been said before. It's massive for the Padres, probably more so than all 29 other teams, because you look at the roster they've built and the contending pieces that they have and the window that they have, and like this should be a team that should be competitive, but it has pretty major holes, one of which is in the starting rotation.
Yeah.
And that rotation question mark is for next season, and it's for beyond that, because you have a couple guys that are getting older, and Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove, and a couple guys that are free agents in Dylan Cease and Michael King. So you're looking for the short-term answer and the long-term answer. And here's this guy that you're going to get on a rookie salary worth only whatever international bonus pool money you want to pay him. And like it's kind of the perfect fit for what the Padres need. And now they're a finalist. On top of that, they're a finalist going up against the arch rival Dodgers. So it's something of a zero-sum game in the National League West. And I mean, the Dodgers could use Roki Sasaki because any rotation could, but the Padres need Roki Sasaki more than any other team.
So that was Padres beat reporter AJ Cassavell on Roki Sasaki and how big this decision is. Now, we will get to more of what AJ had to say. I do want to read a tweet here from Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, and this was tweeted out. This was tweeted out a minute ago. So this is not breaking news per se, but interesting. Mark Feinsand, MLB.com, tweeting, according to sources, both the Dodgers and Padres have been calling teams with regard to trading for international bonus pool money with the hopes of bulking up the amount they can offer Roki Sasaki. Jack Harris, I believe Jack works for the LA Times, Dodgers beat writer, he does, was the first to report the Dodgers' interest in adding to their pool. Mark followed up another tweet. One executive said, quote, there are a number of teams asking for international money that's international money, some that you would guess and some that you would not. LA and SD are certainly reaching out, but they aren't alone. Other teams are recognizing opportunities. See if there's anything else here from Mark Feinsand. I think that's it. Let me check what Adam was texting us here. No, those are the only two tweets. So, interesting. So what do we make of that? The fact that now, I don't know that this is particularly surprising. This is the first day that the international signing bonus pool money opens up, where teams can even touch it. And it also is the first day where you can trade for more money. Now, I could get into some of the details of how you can trade for that money. It's not like somebody can give you their $5 million in one felt swoop. It's not how it works. It comes in increments, and I'll ignore some of the details for now. Look, it very well may be, and what it does tell me is that neither of these teams know what Sasaki is doing. That's what it tells me, number one, because if you knew he wasn't coming, I highly would doubt that you'd be trading for more international money. Now, the other part of this that is interesting, it could have to do with Roki. It also may not. Remember, teams may want to sign Roki for, I don't know, $5-6 million, whatever the number is. But the Padres or Dodgers, whoever gets them, they may want to sign somebody else in that international class. So I'm not sure how much. Obviously, it would affect the amount of money they can offer Roki. Is it all about Roki? I don't know. The part of this that was most interesting, the second tweet, where Feinsand says there are a number of teams asking for international money, some that you would guess and some that you would not. I don't, is Mark Feinsand, is he inferring that maybe there are teams out of those three that are involved? I don't quite know what we're supposed to take away from the second tweet.
I would think, well, first let's just go with the initial tweet first. And my initial thought is let's assume that it is for Sasaki.
Yeah, and it probably is.
The Dodgers are trying to turn this into a bidding war, which means that they're feeling as though he's leaning towards coming here, so they want to offer him more money to try to lure him away. That's my initial thought, especially if it's a Dodger beat reporter that's saying this.
Could be.
That's my initial thought is that the Dodgers are feeling as though they're going to miss out, and they're going to try to turn it into a bidding war instead. Try to throw as much money as possible. And as far as the second tweet is concerned, Oakland has been more active and has spent more money in this free agency than they ever have. Teams like Tampa have been spending more money lately. Teams like Miami, who have a history of winning with players that you really wouldn't expect them to win. They won 2 world championships with a bunch of nobodies and prospects.
Yeah.
Those are the teams, maybe Kansas City even, that are teams that are trying to, that I think are the teams that you wouldn't expect, are teams that are down on their luck and trying to find a different way to supplement that instead of going through MLB free agency.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I'm not 100% sure what to make of, because the thing is, let's say, it would just shock me if this becomes a bidding war, in the sense that, to me, if I'm Roki Sasaki, and I'm not telling him what to do, we're talking about, in all likelihood, the difference of at most a couple $1 million. We're not talking, and again, a couple $1 million.
It's not his big boy contract.
No, we're not talking about major money. To me, I would be shocked if after all this and what we know about this process, if the amount of money that a team can offer him from the pool, if that's the deciding factor, it could sweeten the deal.
I don't think that would be the deciding factor. What I think it is the team that has gotten so used to just throwing money out there to solve their problems is trying to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, I'm not...
You could be right.
I'm not saying that that's what they're doing. Maybe they're not trying to get this money for Roki Sasaki, but with how much they've invested into Sasaki, and with the Dodgers and Padres being 1 and 2 this entire time to try to get him,
right?
It smells of they're trying to throw money at a problem to lure away.
Also keep in mind, the Padres from the outset have a little bit more money. You'd have to go look at the exact figure, have a little bit more money in their pool because of some of the regulations that have been put on the Dodgers with their international spending. So I'd have to go look up and I saw this earlier this morning, the exact number. So look, could be as simple as in the Dodgers case, they're trying to get to a level where the Padres are and what they can offer. For all we know, neither team knows where he's going. And look, if I were AJ Preller and I get wind of the LA Dodgers trying to trade for more international bonus money, then I'm going and doing the same thing. The last thing I'm going to let happen is leave any wiggle room that the Dodgers offering slightly more is going to sway Roki Sasaki to go to them. So, look, it could be something where one of these teams is getting wind of another, trying to add to this pool money, and they're reacting to it. Look, again, we go back to the original segment tonight of the stakes being so high. Remember, when you trade for international bonus pool money, it doesn't come free. You've got to make a trade. So when we talk about the stakes being so high, you can add this onto the list that hypothetically the Padres could go out of their way to add even more money and not get them and come up empty. Hard thing to stomach, hard thing to think about. Hypothetically, the Dodgers would be in the same boat as well. But interesting little twist here. As the signing period opens, that maybe the initial amount of pool money won't be what's offered to Sasaki when all is said and done.
I think it is telling, and again, if you want to weigh in, 833-288-0973 to call in. The telling thing about this, I think, is that it's coming from the Dodgers side. Because if it was coming from this side, that would mean, at least the way I think of it, is that would mean, okay, we're not in the lead. So we have to do something to give ourselves an edge over the other guy.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. So the fact that this is coming from the Dodgers side is even more making me think he's coming here.
Maybe.
And they know it.
And just to be clear, so we have the numbers correct so everybody knows. The Padres pool money for this year is $6,261,600. The Dodgers pool money, because of the tax implications, is $5,146,000. So we're talking about just over $1 million difference. So just so you know, as we get into the very, very particulars of this pool money, we're literally going dollar for dollar. The Padres started in a better place. Again, it would shock me if, when this is all said and done,
comes down to money.
It would shock me. I can't believe that. I just can't. Now, could it be a factor? Sure. I'd be really surprised. But it also, like we just said, could be something to the effect of, if one team's doing it, well, the other team might want to go do it. And the last thing after all this you want to do is be outbid. There's really no reason to be outbid in this scenario. There's just not.
And again, it's coming from a team that has gotten so used to just throwing money at people and getting their way.
Yeah.
And as you said, they're at a disadvantage. So it could also be they're not necessarily trying to get ahead. They're trying to match what the Padres could offer because they don't have as much money.
Could be. All right, we'll step aside. When we come back, we'll continue to revisit what A.J. Cassavell had to say on Gwynn and Chris earlier today. If we get any other Roki Sasaki news, any tweets, we will pass them along. Again, nothing groundbreaking there for Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, but interesting. It shows you that perhaps this is not over. Perhaps the decision has not been made. Perhaps the jockeying is continuing into the international signing period. All that very possible. We continue to talk Roki Sasaki and all other things Padres and Major League Baseball when we return on Inside San Diego Baseball. This is 97.3 The Fan. 8:23 here on 97.3 The Fan on this Wednesday night. Sam Levitt with you on Inside San Diego Baseball. We are taking you up until 9 p.m. as we continue to talk all things Roki Sasaki and Padres related. Be honest with you, I thought going into the 8 p.m. hour we were likely done talking Roki because I think we sort of covered all the bases, no pun intended, with Sasaki in the first hour. But then we get this tweet from Mark Feinsand, which essentially says, according to his sources, Mark Feinsand of MLB.com, both the Dodgers and Padres have been calling teams with regard to trading for international bonus pool money with the hopes of bulking up the amount they can offer Roki Sasaki. Interesting on a number of different levels, as we've discussed, and I would encourage people to remember when we talk about making these trades, this is not something where a team says, hey, we're going to trade you international bonus pool money for nothing. You got to give up something to get something. So the idea that the Padres would, let's say, have to trade a minor leaguer, I doubt it would be a major, highly ranked prospect in all likelihood, but you may have to actually give up players in your system or trade something to go free up more money to sweeten the deal for Roki Sasaki. We talked about it before the break. I'd be shocked if this decision for Roki is ultimately coming down to the number, to the dollar figure. That's my thought on it. Do I know that for sure? No. What it does tell me, though, is that this thing isn't over. Doesn't appear to be over. I'd highly doubt you would get that reporting of the teams trying to acquire more pool money if either of the teams, any of the teams, thought they were out. Now, interesting part of Mark Feinsand's tweet, we know there are 3 finalists reportedly. Well, he didn't include the Blue Jays in that tweet. So that's kind of interesting. You would think maybe the Blue Jays would be in that group, reportedly.
What's their
if they
pool
were
situation?
In it. Let me see here. I believe the Blue Jays also are in the same tier as the Padres. Yeah, at the 6 millions, the 6.26
yeah,
million.
so that just lends more credence to the Dodgers trying to catch up.
Good
for money.
point. Yeah, good point. All right, little twist there. We'll see. So funny. It's like we try to make it sound so exciting trading for international bonus pool money, but hey, that's where we are right now as the Roki watch continues.
And it is really interesting because it gives us an insight on what these teams are thinking and where they think they are in relation to who they're bidding against.
Again, if that report is true,
that means the Dodgers think they're on the back heel. They're on the back
maybe,
foot.
But it says to me that you could be right on that. It also could be that, that it does signal to me that there has been no signal to either team yet of a decision. Could be wrong on that, but if that report is true, I don't know, why they'd be necessarily jockeying for more money. But again, let's remember this didn't happen today out of nowhere. Like the international period did not open today unexpectedly. If you think these teams, with how important Sasaki is, if you think these teams for how long they've been trying to recruit Sasaki and scouting Sasaki, it didn't open up today and all of a sudden the Padres and the Dodgers, in all likelihood, weren't sitting there saying, you know what we should do? Let's bulk up that offer. They just decided that today. I can't imagine that. There has to be some strategy here. There has to be some level of thinking here in a big picture of how this was going to go, of what was important to Sasaki, of how these final days might play out. Very, very interesting. Let's go to the phones. 833-288-0973. Again, we're talking Roki Sasaki. We're talking Padres plans as far as the rest of this roster. Let's knock out a few phone calls here on this Wednesday night. Let's begin things with Derek in Carlsbad calling in. Derek, you're on 97.3 The Fan. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Yeah, I just want to call in because I feel like everybody's so lost in Roki, which obviously I want Roki. If we get him, I think it'd be great for the team, solidify our pitching staff. But we are missing out on other potential players that we've made handshake agreements with.
Yeah.
So when you bring up that tweet, the first thing that goes to my mind is what Frank said. I'm sure his agent is a good one, and he's going back and forth with the Dodgers, telling them, "Hey, I need more money because the Padres are trying to give me more." But if the Padres have an opportunity to, pay their $8 million, whatever, make another trade, and then still have the ability to sign the players that they want to, I think. Like Johan De La Cruz from Dominican Republic, that's the one that comes to mind. He was linked to the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few other guys that I don't know off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of top 15 prospects that still haven't signed. So you got to think that they're linked to either the Dodgers or Padres. And my thinking is that's a situation that might be happening right now. But, I also think that AJ really cooks when it comes to international prospects, obviously, the last 2 years. So it's kind of a shame if we were to miss out on those players. I'll take your thoughts off call, but that's pretty much what I wanted to call in about.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Derek, it goes back to what we talked about in the first segment tonight. Look, it's a really unique situation where you may have to punt on your typical international signing class just for the opportunity to get Roki Sasaki without knowing if you're actually going to get him. I don't have a perfect answer. Now, could increasing your pool money in turn hypothetically mean that you could then sign Sasaki and squeeze in other players into this class? Maybe. Yeah, I would kind of assume if you're trying to increase the pool money that you're solely focused on Sasaki, and I would still assume that he's going to take most of, if not all of that pool money for this year. But Derek, to your point, it is a sacrifice that these teams are going to have to make right now. Bottom line, they got to make that sacrifice, and they've got to deal with that uncertainty that they, yes, may miss out on those players they had handshake agreements with. Yes, they may miss out on some very, very good prospects, even though they're going to be young and they're a ways away. Yeah, that they may miss out on them one way or another, whether they get Roki or not. I mean, that's just a reality of the unique nature of this situation right now. And Derek, to your point, one of the things that would hurt, certainly if the Padres don't get Roki, is the idea that it will hurt their international signing class. And that is, to your point, an area where AJ's really excelled, right? I mean, we've seen AJ with this international bonus pool money go get Ethan Salas, go get Leo DeVries, go get a number of other players as well. That huge class with Adrian Morejon all the way back when, right? It didn't necessarily work out perfectly, but at the time, a lot of money spent on that international pool in that particular year. AJ typically excels at this part of being a president of baseball operations, and that is utilizing his pool money, signing the last couple of years the top international prospect. Yes, that's something that, because of this situation in 2025 with Sasaki, Padres right now almost got to sit on the sidelines until they have an answer. Now, if they get the answer from Sasaki and it's not coming to San Diego, are they going to be able to pivot? Are they going to be able to go and get some of these guys that haven't signed? Any guys that they had handshake agreements with? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know their class well enough, the agreements they had well enough. Obviously, I'm not down there. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a really fair question, and that will be unfortunate. Again, we talk about the stakes being really high. That is one of the reasons this is so important, is because it's not just about getting Roki. It's about, if you don't get him, what you might have missed in your signing class otherwise, beyond Roki Sasaki, right? I mean, if Roki doesn't end up coming to San Diego and he had told the Padres a few days ago they weren't going to be the team and they were no longer worried about him, guess what? Padres could do whatever they wanted with this international signing class today. But they're not in that situation, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Makes it very, very complicated. It really, really does. All right, let's step aside. When we come back, we'll knock out another phone call or two. We'll finish up with AJ Cassavell audio from earlier today on Gwynn and Chris. We continue to talk Roki Sasaki. We continue to talk Padres on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Chocolate-covered cherries. Yum. Sounds good. If I wasn't intermittent fasting, might have some chocolate-covered cherries when I got off the air.
Says the guy who can actually have them still.
Well, you could have 1, 2.
No, I could eat whatever I want. It's just probably not in my diet plan to have a cherry smothered in chocolate.
Sam Levitt with you, 97.3 The Fan. We are taking you up until 9 p.m. We've got about 20 minutes or so left in our Wednesday night program Inside San Diego Baseball as we talk all things Padres on this Wednesday night, all things Roki Sasaki as the international signing period opens up today. And we don't have a whole lot to update you on yet, other than this sort of interesting situation with the Padres and Dodgers reportedly calling teams and perhaps trying to trade for international bonus pool money to bulk up their monetary offer to Roki Sasaki. Like we mentioned earlier, Padres start in a better place than the Dodgers do. They've got over $1 million more than the Dodgers have at the outset. Now, doesn't mean much of anything, hypothetically, on where Sasaki will go, but it is worth noting. Frank made a good point during the break, and I think it's worth just noting before we go back to the phones here. We brought up the second part of Mark Feinsand's tweet, the part of it that talked about a number of teams asking for international money, some that you would guess and some that you would not. And we said, why would other teams be asking for more money? And by the way, teams do trade for more bonus pool money. It's not a crazy idea, just, on the surface. And we thought, maybe, are there other teams involved that we don't know about? I thought Frank made a good point to me. In all likelihood, the reason that is because teams simply want more money to spend on the international free agent class, and maybe this year in particular, because of the uncertainty the Padres and Dodgers and potentially the Blue Jays are facing as they wait for the Sasaki decision. Well, the 27 other teams in Major League Baseball, they may see an opportunity to increase their pool money and go get more guys. Have more guys in their signing class, because maybe there are some guys that were agreed to go to the Dodgers or the Padres or the Blue Jays that can't commit to any of these guys right now. Some of these teams probably look at it and say, hey, it's our time to swoop, and let's go bulk up our pool money because we can go get more guys or offer more money to an international signing class member in this year's class. So interesting. Number of different things may be going on behind the scenes right now when it comes to the Dodgers and the Padres and Roki Sasaki and this evolving scenario in the Sasaki sweepstakes. Let's go back to the phones here. We're talking Sasaki. We're talking Padres. We're talking what this roster may look like. 833-288-0973. We've had John in Chula Vista waiting on hold for a while. So, John, we finally go to you in Chula Vista. Hello.
All right. How you doing, Sammy?
Hey, doing well.
And Frank, and Frank, both of you guys. All right, real quick. You didn't, because last week, remember, it was a bunch of crickets. We didn't have anything going, and you didn't even mention that, that we did acquire Sneeze and Luis. And then the other quick question was, the elephant in the room. What about this lawsuit that's about to happen?
Yeah, John, look,
widow.
Yeah, John, look, we briefly mentioned kind of last week, and, look, we're not lawyers here. Obviously there's been statements put out by Shil Seidler, by the Seidler brothers, and we're not going to pretend to be lawyers here. Look, obviously, we'll see what happens with all that. Look, we know that Roki Sasaki, we know that, and like I said earlier, we know that the Padres check a lot of boxes for what we know about Sasaki and what he's looking for, right? And by the way, I think what John was referring to as far as cease and arise was the arbitration deals, which wasn't breaking news that they avoided arbitration with those guys. We haven't really even talked about that, the fact that that Michael King wasn't I should say, the Padres didn't avoid arbitration with King. We'll see what plays out with that. We haven't really touched on that. I don't know that we need to tonight. It's not super, super pressing. But look, we know that the Padres check a lot of boxes when it comes to Roki Sasaki. And to me, that is incredibly encouraging still to this moment, okay? Does it mean they're going to get him? We don't know, okay? Does the international bonus pool money number have an impact on that? I don't know. I can't imagine it does. But when you talk about the idea that Roki wants or prefers small market, prefers a place with pitching development, you Darvish, the impact that you could have on him, the fact that the Padres have been on him for so long, it's to me there is a real case, and there has been a case for a long time that the Padres make a lot of sense. Do they ultimately get him? I don't know. But they make a lot of sense, and they check a lot of the boxes, maybe even more so than the Dodgers. When you want to start talking about sponsorships, when you want to start talking about sharing more of the pie in that sense, with guys like Yamamoto, guys like Ohtani, kind of being under that shadow, Look, I think that those are all things that people have wrote about. Those are all things that could play major factors here in his decision. Bottom line is this: we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week. But I still remain very steadfast in saying that I think the Padres really check a lot of boxes, and that's probably a lot of the reason they're in this thing. A lot of the reason why they're jockeying for position for international bonus pool money right now. It's a big part of the reason. All right, let's revisit what AJ Cassavell had to say. We'll finish up with some of that here in our final 10 minutes or so on the program. AJ Cassavell, Padres beat reporter for MLB.com on Gwynn and Chris earlier today. Let's stay on Sasaki here, and this is a really good question. I mean, look, it's been a topic of conversation on this program as to what is important to Roki Sasaki. What is he looking for? We mentioned checking those boxes. I thought AJ Cassavell had good insight here, good perspective here on what's important to Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because he's a relatively private guy, so I don't know that we know that answer until he makes his decision.
Yeah.
I think it's already pretty clear that he's not necessarily the type of guy that I mean, the Yankees aren't a finalist, the Mets aren't a finalist. He's not a guy that needs that big market. Obviously, the Dodgers are a finalist, and they represent that. But he's coming to the big leagues at age 23, when if he had waited a couple of seasons, he could have gone in on whatever free agent contract he needed. He's doing it out of a personal goal, a personal dream of his to be in the big leagues. So I don't think his reasons are necessarily motivated by some guys we've seen in the past hit free agency, particularly guys that have come in and been posted after they turn 25 and could make a regular kind of free agent contract. I think it's just kind of wait and see. Obviously, this is a very ambitious and driven guy in terms of what he wants to accomplish. He's wanted to be in the big leagues for a long time, and I'm assuming that he doesn't want to once he gets to the big leagues, like he wants to make a name for himself. And so pitching development, obviously a big one. I think the Padres can lay claim to some pretty good influences under Ruben Niebla. And one thing that I've kind of touched on a few times is that they've taken some guys who have had their workloads kind of monitored. Now, granted, Michael King, Seth Lugo, those kind of guys were coming from the bullpen, but Roki Sasaki is a 23-year-old breaking into the big leagues, and the Padres have handled guys who maybe need to be eased along into that before, and they've got a track record there of getting guys in the pitching lab and kind of understanding where they need to go and what kind of measurables they can be checking on throughout the season. So I think it'll be wherever he feels like he can achieve the greatness that he clearly wants to achieve. I think there's a lot to be said for what he's doing now, coming to the big leagues now, and trying to make it when he could have waited a couple more years and made significantly more money.
That was Padres beat reporter AJ Cassavell earlier today on 97.3 The Fan. Some good insight there on what Roki Sasaki might be looking for. I think at this point, and it's not to discount what Sasaki is looking for, to this point, I think we've went on and on and on over the last month or so about the case that each team has, right? How those meetings might go, how they might unfold, what the sales pitch is for each team. I think we're at the point right now as we literally watch these teams potentially try to get more bonus pool money. We watch the final sales pitch. We maybe, unconfirmed, but certainly look like it, watch Roki Sasaki at Petco Park throwing in Padres gear. It feels like we're just at a stage where it's like, you've made whatever pitch you can, and now it's in the hands of Roki. And does the pool money play a role? I don't know. But it's in the hands of Roki. Let's finish up here tonight with a couple more clips from AJ Cassavell. Talk a little bit more about the Padres roster in a more general sense. Talked a little bit earlier about the idea, and I know you and Scraby did a nice job, I chimed in as well, about Robert Suarez. And the idea of trading a guy like Robert Suarez, I think it's a definite possibility. I think it's an idea that hypothetically, in the right scenario, makes sense to free up the money. In a bullpen that I think is right now really strong. I think the Padres have other options to close. I'm not discounting the year that Robert Suarez had, the impact that he would have as a closer on this team in 2025. But there's a case to be made when you look at Suarez, Arise, Cease, ignore their arbitration. Ignore the arbitration number for Cease and Arise, and ignore their salary number for this year. But if you just want to assess it as where could you trade from where you feel like it's not really, really, really going to hurt you, I think there's a strong argument to be made that Robert Suarez is actually the most tradable asset, because I think this bullpen can get by without Robert Suarez. So, with that in mind, here was AJ Cassavell earlier today on names that could contribute to the Padres bullpen as they likely lose Tanner Scott from last year's pen, and maybe consider trading somebody like a Robert Suarez.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job with those guys to the point where I feel like they'll feel okay if they're both. They're not bringing back Tanner Scott. Like, he's going elsewhere, and even if they look to move a Robert Suarez, like, I think that's one of the reasons why you look at some of the guys that are tradable. He's one of those guys because I think they might feel pretty comfortable. Now, granted, he's the back end closer that's done it before, but with Jason Adam and Jeremiah Estrada, like, you feel pretty good about what you've got in that bullpen. So I guess I think Sean Reynolds, Alec Jacob, those kind of guys can be harnessed. The Padres have proven that those guys can be out-getters. It'll be interesting to see what they do with a guy like Adrian Morejon, because they do need help in the rotation, and he has been kind of mused about as like a guy who could be a weapon as a starter, but he already is a weapon as a left-handed reliever, and they don't really have a front line, one of those in their bullpen of anyone they have. He's the kind of guy that you would expect to be able to take that step for being a lockdown lefty at the back end. So I'm very curious to see kind of where they go in spring training with him. But they've got a pretty proven track record in terms of developing guys in the bullpen, where some of those young guys I think could come in and make an impact and kind of fill out what the Padres, if they need to make a trade or if they don't make the signing that you kind of would hope they make, if that's the area where they lay off a little bit, I think you probably feel okay about it.
That was Padres beat reporter for MLB.com, AJ Cassavell, on the Padres bullpen. Let's play one more clip from AJ here from earlier today on Gwynn and Chris. And I think this is a good one to wrap up with, because while we would all like to sit here in San Diego and believe that Roki Sasaki will be a Padre, that the Padres have made a strong, compelling case for his future in San Diego, like we alluded to in the opening segment tonight, there is a chance that doesn't happen. There's a chance that this ends up being, unfortunately, a gut punch, that it ends up being a really disappointing end to this pursuit for Roki Sasaki, especially if he goes to your division rival in the LA Dodgers. This can't be a surprise to the Padres if they don't get him. I'm sure they have contingency plans. I'm sure they've discussed that reality if they don't get him. Here was AJ Cassavell earlier today on what the Padres might do in a world where they don't land Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question that I know the Padres hope they don't have to answer, but they should probably be planning for the possibility, because it is a possibility. I think they probably look to the trade market. One of those guys. The question I have is does having Roki Sasaki change any of your planning in terms of who you would trade? Like, is Dylan Cease less available because now you don't have that arm in the rotation, but you still need to kind of solidify things for the long term, and your chances of locking him up long term are not great, at least going into this season. It seems poised to hit free agency. And so I think they need to go out and find ways to acquire starters. They found a creative way, obviously, last year, trading Juan Soto to get Michael King and then a couple other guys who were helpful in Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito. They don't have a Juan Soto to trade, but they do have a couple guys who are on the final year of their contract who can get you maybe intriguing younger guys with more control to fill that out. And then, I mean, this lineup, I keep looking at kind of what their offense is, and it needs a couple bats. I know we say they need a left fielder to fill in for Jurickson Profar or potentially be Jurickson Profar. There's other guys that need to be replaced as well. Like, the part of this team that was so productive last season was its depth and its ability to fill in when guys got hurt. And the bench, for me, is a pretty big question mark. The DH spot's a question mark. So there's a lot to get done. I think that's true whether or not they have Roki Sasaki. I think they need to plan. I mean, they need to plan regardless. Whether they get him or not, there's a lot to get done. I don't think his addition impacts too much of your thinking, but it certainly impacts the way you feel about the way this offseason goes.
And I think that was a good point to wrap up on from AJ Cassaville. Obviously, the Sasaki decision is massive. I don't know how much impact in reality beyond how you might approach the trade market if you do or if you don't get Roki Sasaki. I'm not sure how much actual impact it has on your strategy for the rest of your roster. And the Padres right now still, at this very moment, less than a month from pitchers and catchers reporting, not that they don't have time to address it, but certainly you don't feel like they have addressed left field or catcher or the first base DH spot, and those are going to remain, whether they get Sasaki or not, some very, very important questions for this team and for this roster, and things you feel like they need to be the best version of this team in 2025, and a team that can compete at the level that I think a lot of us hope they can compete at. It's just that there are obvious gaps right now. So that hasn't changed. It will be a fascinating week. What is a week from today? So a week from today is the 22nd. That's right. We're not going to be on next Wednesday. So I'm going to tell you what as we wrap up here. We will not have a show next Wednesday. I said that a little bit earlier. So we're going to know for sure by the time we're on the air 2 weeks from tonight. I'll be doing the show remotely that night, but Franco will be here in the studio. We'll be with you. Crystal clear audio, even though I won't be here in the studio. When we're back on the air 2 weeks from tonight, we will know what the deal is with Roki Sasaki. And I'd also highly presume that there will be more activity for the Padres. And I know that's a hard thing to promise because of the way the offseason has unfolded. But I would imagine once this Sasaki decision is made, either way, the Padres got to get going here one way or another in making some moves to address this team. Again, one way or another. So stay tuned, 97.3 The Fan. Throughout the rest of this week, into next week, we may not have a decision on this from Sasaki for another week. I will tell you, you have not heard the last of me over the course of the next few days here on the station. I'll be on 2 to 6 on Friday with Tony Gwynn Jr. and Matt Scraby. I'll fill in for Chris Ello on Friday here on 97.3 The Fan. Then Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, I should be on 8 to 10 in some capacity on Ben and Woods as they're out at Fantasy Camp in Peoria. So you'll hear me react to whatever Roki Sasaki news we have or we don't have as far as this program, Inside San Diego Baseball. We will be back with you 2 weeks from tonight. And by the time we get to 2 weeks from tonight, I mean, we are really heading towards spring training. We're getting there little by little. A lot to be done for the San Diego Padres between now and then as we continue to monitor Roki Sasaki and this major, major decision of where he will go. Ben and Woods with you, 6 a.m. tomorrow, live and local here on 97.3 The Fan. For Frank Marchese, I'm Sam Levitt saying so long and good night on 97.3 The Fan.